Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill, along with Andrew Moran, Mark Angelides, and Dave Patterson. And this is the Conservative Five, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. On today's episode, staring down the barrel of injustice, the Tucker tapes, January 6th, has tongues wagging. The war between Trump and anti-Trumpers hits a fever pitch in Family Feud, Fox and Trump. A quick reshaping America's economy is on the docket. And of course, another crazy round of Just for Fun, Volume 28 this time around. All this and more coming up in this edition of the Conservative Five. Fox News' Tucker Carlson did his homework, sifting through an estimated 41,000 hours of footage from the U.S. Capitol, recorded on January 6, 2021. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy authorized the exclusive release. It was eye-opening, to say the least. Democrats and the drive-by media were incensed, but do they have egg on their faces, or simply the wrinkles of righteous indignation? Our friend across the pond is here to debrief us on the latest political hot potato. Mark, give us the cliff notes of your recent articles on the Tucker tapes.
Sure. Well, essentially, I think what the tape showed to everybody was that the vast majority of people who were at the Capitol that day, they were sightseers. I mean, you've got grannies in old muffs and whatnot wandering around, as well as people with flags and whatnot. And now some of them were even staying within the guide ropes, which it looks like they're really being given tours by the police officers in attendance. So the reason that it's caused such an uproar, I would say that first it shows that the January 6th committee, they must have scoured the same footage that Tucker Carlson's team did, right? Thousands of hours for the most egregious examples and presented that as somehow representative of all of the Donald Trump supporters that went along. So it's a narrative destroyer, I think. And to many people, it displays that the committee members, they were intent on dealing a death blow to Donald Trump, and that his political destruction was the driving force for what they did. So it really wasn't an unbiased investigation. And I think the second thing is that it exposes that their narratives are only acceptable from one side of the political equation. So you had the House members, they had this Hollywood producer stage manage everything to show what they wanted to show. And yet they complain when Tucker has a handful of Fox News producers showing what he wants to show. So for me, it comes to it's very much like a political Rorschach test. You can see what you want to see in it.
So are you saying that Tucker Carlson only showed the peaceful parts? I mean, if that's...
But essentially what he did, he did this on purpose. And I don't think anybody's denying that Tucker Carlson was trying to create an opposing narrative to the January 6th committee narrative. And that was his purpose. So the January 6th committee, they showed the worst. Tucker Carlson showed, I guess, much of the more user-friendly stuff that happened. I guess his point was to show that there's some middle ground in between, which is not really what the January 6th committee were doing. They were just looking to hang Trump out to dry.
Well, Andrew, you have a tendency to skulk around Twitter. I check Facebook pretty religiously, but you are a Twitter freak. What are you hearing out there? I mean, what is the general consensus? Do they think this is bold? Is there more Trump support, less Trump support?
Well, I'll just give one specific example. Former Congressman Adam Kinzinger, when everyone is pointing out to that whole Josh Hawley edited clip of him trying to run away from the protesters, and the J6 committee saying, "Oh, look at him! This guy supported the rally, and now he's running away from them." But then, what Tucker Carlson released was that he was running along with a bunch of other people, or he was just behind them. But Kinzinger replied saying, "Oh, see, yeah, he's running away because of those violent protesters." But this whole thing on Twitter, what I would have preferred is similar to what happened with Matt Taibbi, or even with WikiLeaks, where you have, just Kevin McCarthy would have given, yes, Tucker Carlson the footage, but also dumping it into the media for everyone to parse through, comb through, and release all this other footage. Because imagine if you had a crowdsourced editing team or a crowdsourced production team, and everyone would access the video, access the footage, release this, release that, because now we're going through a slow, methodical release of the footage from Tucker Carlson. You have to wait every night, Monday to Friday for the latest round. But I think overall, I would have preferred a crowdsource on Twitter or just a WikiLeaks style file of for everyone to comb through.
So it's kind of like a soap opera. Dave? What do you from your little perch, what are your friends saying?
Well, I think that it's just, standard inside the Beltway fare for the Democrats, and they did what you would expect them to do. But I think to Andrew's point that I don't know what Tucker Carlson was thinking, but it occurred to me that if in fact the 41,000 hours had been released to everyone, and you had CNN and MSNBC and all of the other left-wing networks doing the same thing, this would be grist for Carlson's mill forever, because he could then comment on their approach to the whole thing. One of the statistics that I think is the most telling of all, when you look at the Biden administration and that whole episode with the inaugural, is that you had 26,000 National Guardsmen to protect 2,000 Biden inaugural attendees. That's 13 guardsmen per attendee. That says it all.
I think I
don't even know what that says.
I think another sense too. I think this is also a terrific development in this whole the whole left's narrative. Because remember, they've been saying for months that this. I mean, there was I'll give another specific example. There was a former FBI agent on MSNBC a few months ago, and he said that 9/11 was nothing compared to January 6th. But even if you don't look at some of the previous footage that was found, let's say of the Q shaman, of him being escorted to the upper chamber and him standing on top and being ridiculous as he looked, but this whole footage completely dispels this whole notion that January 6th was the worst thing to ever happen to the United States in its entire history. So I think that's another good part. And one more thing too, I would say that no matter what your point of view is on this whole what happened on J6, I think that everyone, or at least I hope that everyone would be in agreement that the federal government withholding critical evidence, either from the defense attorneys of the J6 protesters or the public, is not exactly a hill to die on. I mean, perhaps Dave or Mark will agree.
Actually, I read something by Jonathan Turley on this, talking specifically about the QAnon shaman. I think it's Jacob Chansley is his name, and so he. Evidence was presented against him, and he was encouraged to plead guilty. And he's in the process of serving 41 months behind bars. But if he had the same footage that showed him being walked around the Capitol by police officers, and even attempting to open doors for him,
he could have made a better deal. Is that what you're saying?
Well, he could have either made a better deal, or I mean, it certainly wouldn't have been 41 months, which for I guess it's felony obstruction that he was eventually charged with, convicted of. But it certainly wouldn't have been 41 months, according to Jonathan Turley and many other lawyers who chimed in on Mr. Turley's words on that. So, but by withholding this footage essentially until the Republicans took office, that they've potentially materially damaged the lives of people. That is not done in a judicious or justice-based way, hiding evidence or withholding evidence that could be exculpatory or mitigating to some degree. That's not the American justice system, and that's what we had because of the Democrats so keen to craft their own narrative.
But now the next stage in this whole saga is that the Democrats, especially Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, he's now encouraging Rupert Murdoch and Fox News to censor Tucker Carlson and prevent him from showcasing any more footage. Now, this is far different from, let's say, Whoopi Goldberg, who's saying on The View, saying, "Oh, this is 1984. Don't believe your eyes, don't believe your ears," which is complete nonsense. Them trying to shut down Fox News, yada yada yada. But for a government official to say Rupert Murdoch shut this down, I think that's also another concerning trend in this J6.
Are you saying, Andrew, that you're paraphrasing Groucho Marx, and you should believe me and not your lying eyes?
That's not Groucho Marx. That's Chico Marx. That's Chico Marx.
Oh boy. Okay, I have one more question before we
it's
totally
not
derail
Carl,
this conversation.
I know that.
It's not. Well, Karl Marx is well known to be a humorless man, not like his sister who invented the starting pistol for all races, for all foot races. That's why they call it Anya marks.
All right.
Oh,
Okay, I have
Nice.
one more question because you guys have totally derailed my topic. I have
you're
one
not
more
in charge
question, and all
anymore.
three of you jump in whenever you want to jump in. But it's this: Kevin McCarthy specifically gave these 41,000 hours of tape to Tucker Carlson and no one else. Is that going to make the Republicans look bad, or is that just, poking the bear?
Oh, I think that it's certainly poking the progressive bear. I mean, you've seen the reaction that's taken place, but I think that what the result is from all of this, the hearings and all of basically the nonsense, is that civil discourse is the victim here.
Yeah, I think there's actually potential that this whole thing could really backfire because by going to Tucker Carlson directly, what you have is a full court press of, as we've seen, the government, high-ranking elected government leaders in cooperation with the left-leaning media, poo-pooing the alternate narrative that Tucker Carlson has put out, and I think the full court press. I mean, it's a tug of war between what Tucker's put out and what the full court press can achieve. And let's be fair, Fox has the viewing numbers, but the other side has the power and the reach.
Or you could have done it with Elon Musk to try to find a few independent journalists who were neither left nor right, and then try to provide the footage that way, try to reach the public that way.
All right, guys. Think that was a rousing, good effort to bring the Chico and Carl and all the other Marks people out in this. You
Harpo and
weirdos.
Bracho.
You guys are weird.
And Zeppo.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Zeppo.
yeah.
No,
Okay.
don't forget Zeppo. Don't forget Zeppo.
Okay, I'm getting out of this. Anyhow, has there ever been an administration buried in opaqueness and scandal like Joe Biden's? And we have 2 more years to report it all to our readers and viewers. So buckle up, friends. Thanks, panel. The gloves finally came off as former President Donald Trump stormed his way through the biggest conservative event of the year, CPAC. No one person or entity was safe. New nicknames came about, more fake news was on the docket, and Fox News was nearly silent. Since election 2020, when Fox News declared Arizona for Biden after about, 0.000% had been reported, things have been kind of frosty between the two. After the January 6th mess, the conservative news outlets had ceased any coverage of Trump, the candidate. Dave, dashing Dave. I know this is your favorite subject. Talk to us about Trump and Fox.
Well, I think that this is not a divorce made in heaven. I think that rather this is just Trump being Trump. I mean, I don't know that Fox has necessarily moved away from Trump, with the exception of Geraldo Rivera, who now does not support former President Trump in 2024. But I think that Trump derangement syndrome is the most infectious thing that we have seen since COVID, and perhaps supplants it. Everyone is offended these days, and of course, it doesn't take much to set former President Trump off. And so, I think that this is just a stage that everyone is going through. And as soon as you start to see the candidates more clearly that are going to be facing Trump, I think that what's going to happen is that Fox will be seen as a far more middle of the road media outlet.
You're probably right there, Dave. I mean, it's the road less traveled for for them. But the point you make about this is, I think it's a really good one because you have obviously on one side you have your alphabets, your ABCs, MSNBC, CNN, and then on the other side you've basically just got Fox. Now, some of the numbers, by the way, just I was looking into them recently. It's in well over its 100th week of being top of the prime time, and the prime time viewing figures are more than, I think it's more than CNN and MSNBC combined. for their
Right.
prime time shows on Fox. So they are the big beast in the room. But if they're not backing Trump when it comes to 2024, because they are, I mean, they're an avowedly right-wing thing. Who are they? They're not gonna start supporting Joe Biden. My question
Are you
is,
sure?
who,
Because they're pretty soft on him.
well, you never know. But who jumps into that void? Who jumps into the void if Fox says, well, we're not going to go down the Donald Trump road again. We've given it twice. We're not going down it again. Who jumps into that void? Now, that is an interesting question. And I think there's a number of smaller, more boutique style outlets that are either taking the right or the conservative, let's call it the conservatarian position on things. But there's nobody really for the middle ground. And the idea that Fox might become a middle ground outlet has people like Mr. Kinzinger and Chuck Schumer shaking pearls, I'm sure.
Well, I think at this stage we can all agree that Donald Trump doesn't need any media outlet whatsoever. He doesn't need Fox. He doesn't need OAN. He doesn't need RSBN. He doesn't need anybody. You know, I mean, look at the latest polls. I think it was in the Northeast, and he has 58% support in the Republican primary with Ron DeSantis at a distant 21%. So it may have been true in 2016, but in 2020, race, he doesn't need. I mean, he has Truth Social and attending those massive rallies, and that is it. That's all he needs to, if the polls are correct, that's all he needs to win the nomination again.
Well, I think, Andrew, there is another part to this, and that is, if you'll recall back in 2016, when he did win, is that during the course of the campaign, he would call in to CNN, MSNBC, Fox, and he got billions of dollars worth of free advertising for Donald Trump. That was not true necessarily in 2020 and probably will not be true in 2024.
He had 4 years of just beating the heck out of him. You know, he didn't turn around. Everything he did was wrong and racist, and he was really beaten and still came out of it pretty tough. But I don't think. I mean, if Fox takes a step back and doesn't stick true to their conservative kind of news outlet, I don't see any Republican being able to compete with the other two networks.
If you look at the recent reports of Tucker Carlson, and he released these text messages were leaked, and he said that he absolutely hates Donald Trump. But if you look at his coverage of the last 4 years, or at least during when Trump was president, he did give President Trump a fair shake. He did provide, even coverage when it came to monitoring the administration and then looking at how the media reacted to the Trump administration. So, but the Fox News, Fox News has not been intellectually or ideologically consistent throughout its whole tenure. You look at Sean Hannity. Sean Hannity loved the Patriot Act. He loved the Iraq War. He loved big government when the Republicans were in charge. And then that completely changed when Trump became president, started calling out the interventionist foreign policy and, the whole big government apparatus and the swamp and the deep state. So Fox, if everyone's listening to Fox News to carve their own ideology, I think that's a mistake in itself.
I think too, Andrew, that what you see with Fox is if Fox modifies or moderates its points of view even a little bit from center right, they become center, regardless of and their center right to right has always been resident in their commentators. Not the Brett Baers and Brit Humes of the world.
Hey, I remember Brit Hume. I remember during the 2008 election. I'm sorry for dumping the shows there on this segment anyway. But I remember Brit Hume. I remember when he would cover the Ron Paul campaign, and he also didn't give Ron Paul a fair shake. Nobody on that network they all mocked Ron Paul. They all made fun of the policies he supported, whether it was the Federal Reserve or ending the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. So, for me personally, I will never forgive Fox News for that coverage in 2012. But I would not say that even their news coverage is objective or, as you say, centered.
Fair and balanced, I think. That's what you're searching for. Fair
Fox
and balanced.
Business, however, Fox Business is a decent alternative. I would say Fox Business.
Let me throw a little, hairpin curve in here and say, or ask, are all news outlets trying to go back to middle ground?
No.
Exactly the point I was about to make, sir. You've got places like Fox and all of them. They covered Trump as a 2016 Trump, but then they covered 2020 Trump as 2016 Trump. And if Trump tries to run again in 2024 as 2016 Trump, he's going to get the same reaction. So what I've seen him doing, or what I suspect he's doing, and what I think it's hinted at quite strongly in the messages that he's put out so far, is he's going for a Trump 2.0. And that's not going to be based on a Trump 2.0 personality, because you can't separate the personality from the man or from the president even. Mm-hmm. But in terms of policy, because you had people who were against Trump in 2016 coming onto his side because of how he did with the policy, the basic conservatarian policy. And I think what he's putting out now is a platform that will work for him because of the policy. It will work for him despite his personality and the animosity that so many people feel towards him. And so the networks will have to adjust to a Trump 2.0 in a way that they didn't have to in 2020.
I would say Sarah's
not everybody liked the man on a personal level, but they liked and enjoyed his policy.
I think that's true, Sarah. I think, but the question I always ask to my never Trumper friends, who incidentally after Biden are becoming fewer, but what I always ask is, okay, you didn't like his style, but what didn't you like about the fact that he didn't get us in any fighting wars? He actually made a reasonable assessment when the Navy drone was shot down. He asked the question, how many people will die if we send Tomahawk missiles into the factory where the missiles were? And they said, well, about 150. Well, nobody died in the drone. Why would I do that? I mean, he has a measured approach in a way that I think is somewhat eccentric to what people expect in Washington, D.C. And I do think that 2.0 Donald Trump will be that, because he is going to be reacting to 3 years of the lunacy that we've experienced.
He has a foil to work against now.
Absolutely. I mean, let's face it, the next 2 years are going to be an e-ticket ride, so we might as well buckle up. But it will be entertaining, I can tell you that much. Thanks, panel. Joe Biden is spending money like it's someone else's. Man, it is. And he's touting his infrastructure project and clean energy initiatives everywhere. But what he isn't saying is how many concealed additives, so to speak, are linked into those packages. So really, every president tends to play hide the sausage with high dollar legislation. But is President Biden doing so above board? And what will the American economy look like when his first term is over? Oh, Andrew, imagine that. You're up first, you little economic genius.
Well, I would not use the word genius, but also as a warning to our viewers, be sure to check libertynation.com for the latest comprehensive analysis of the Biden budget. So, but anyway, so when you talk about revamping or what the U.S. economy will look like after the first term, I remember when going back to the early days of his administration, everyone said that, oh, he'd be like the next FDR, and his record is more like Jimmy Carter at this point, worse than Jimmy Carter. But I think the characterization is accurate in the sense that he is transforming the fabric of the U.S. economy. But unfortunately, these are short-term goals, at least for progressives. But it's going to turn out to long-term consequences for the nation. I tend to think of the name Sarah Raskin Bloom. I don't know if you guys remember that name. She was nominated to the Fed vice chair for financial regulation last year. Her problem was that she believed the Fed's role was to prevent oil and gas companies to have access to capital. Now, this would have dramatically changed the fabric of the Federal Reserve System because the Fed has no bearing on that whatsoever. I think another important name, and James Fight reported on her recently for LibertyNation.com, Gigi Son. She was nominated to serve on the FCC. Her problem is when she advocated for the federal government to censor Fox News. These are names that repeatedly come up that Biden nominates and appoints to the government, they want to change the fabric of the country. They want to change how the government operates. They want to change the look of the economy, the marketplace, and that's disastrous news for the future of the United States. So not only is Biden creating long-term inflation, perpetual or contributing to perpetual federal deficits and the national debt, the people he's putting in charge are unelected bureaucrats who are just going to keep making things worse, whether it's the economy, social aspect, or politics.
Okay, well, from a distance, Mark, how do you see the economy shaping up, say, 10 years from now, if this administration has its way?
Well, it seems as though the broader economy will be in tatters, a tatters that it probably won't recover from very, very quickly. I know Andrew and I talk about Bionomics quite a lot on our Liberty Nation radio show, and we talk about how Japan, of course, with its lost decade, and how this is really we're seeing this, we're witnessing this in real time, all the precursors to an era where wages are falling behind inflation, where costs are skyrocketing, because again, there's nothing happening within the Biden administration that is bringing the safety and security back to America, and that's including production, manufacturing, things like this. But when you look at Bionomics and the wider, I guess, ESG strategies, and they're being adopted globally, which is a concern. But the first thing that pops into my mind is these things, they shrink liberty and kill free markets. And I think that's really the key behind everything that's happening, is they don't want free markets to be the driver within the country. We literally know how historical we've seen historical and contemporary evidence that the best way to alleviate poverty and suffering on a grand scale is to make the poorest people richer, right? That's pretty straightforward, I think. But to do so by a wealth transfer, by let's tax these people and give it to these people, that's not making poorer people wealthier. That's just a handout. And that by its very nature is a finite problem. So, free markets, they're the engine that drives people out of poverty. They always have been. And it seems to me that Bionomics and the grander ESG stuff that's happening is the antithesis of that. If that makes any sense.
It's just quickly to piggyback on what Mark said. Remember Margaret Thatcher's famous speech in
socialism is great until you run out of other people's money,
or like this when she would do this. Remember that too.
I think that one of the things that we're going to see that's going to be interesting is just how much the defense budget is increased with the actually today, right? It's been taken over to Congress. And is this going to be a dramatic increase? We've seen that China's increase was 7.1% over last year. That's a relative measure. We really don't know what that really means, but it's more than in the past. I don't think you're going to see a dramatic increase, and this may be a very insightful look at the budget generally. I think that this is very troubling, even for some Democrats. I was watching Joe Manchin the other day, and he's quite concerned about the $31-something trillion debt. And when you have the gross interest on the debt exceeding the defense budget, then I think there's a cause to be worried.
But Biden, he said, he hasn't, at the time of recording, he hasn't released the budget yet, but his administration says that he proposes to cut $3 trillion from the deficit over the next 10 years. 10 years. So in the meantime, he's going to accumulate about, according to the last budget, $14 trillion of deficits. So in that way, so do the math, so that's still $11 trillion being added to the national debt over that period. It's chicken feed at this point. And you look at the CBO, Sarah mentioned long-term implications of the U.S. economy. You look at the Congressional Budget Office long-term outlook, and it's just disastrous, whether it's economic growth, whether it's just, Dave said, the interest on the national debt, plus how it can erode other spending that people rely on, whether it's Social Security, whether it's Medicare. So overall, these budgets, and they don't get better under Republicans, they just exacerbate the problem too, because nobody is willing to tackle tackle the meat and potatoes of government spending. Yeah, sure, you can laugh about $1 billion being given to Ethiopia, but what about the trillions of dollars that were spent on wars overseas? That's also contributed to national debt. So yeah, so the whole fiscal problem, it's going to exacerbate over the next decade.
And I think what
Andrew,
really is
sorry, and can I just come back on Andrew that
Sure.
$3 trillion that Joe Biden says he's going to cut from the budget, cut from the debt, that's actually assuming that the programs that they put in place are sunsetted, that they go out.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
what is it? There's nothing quite as permanent as a temporary government program.
Yes, Milton Friedman.
Sorry, Dave, please.
Yeah, well, once they get that money, they're not going to give it back. I mean, that's in every, I don't care if you're feds or state or local. Once you get an increase in your budget, cutting your budget isn't going to happen. They just won't go backward. Even if they can, they won't.
To Sarah's point, I think one of the most laughable comments that you hear is when people say, well, we're getting a great deal of savings because we're cutting this program out in the out years. There's no money in the out years. It's it's PowerPoint charts.
Yeah. It's a hot mess. But I guess we know as much as we can without having a spy in the Oval Office about what the heck this administration is planning on doing, for our economy. I'm saying it doesn't look good right now. Thanks, panel. It has become clear from our viewer comments that trivia is a must play on Just for Fun. So we're back. Folks at home, hands on buzzers. Here we go. And you do not need to phrase your answer in the form of a question, Smarty Pants. That could create anarchy. Are you ready?
Absolutely.
Really?
No. I'm nowhere near. What's the topic?
Okay, I'm not going to call on you. I want to see who can answer first, because that's more of a challenge than giving you a bunch of answers. Now, if you don't answer anything correctly, then I'll tell you the answer. Cool?
Sold.
Hello?
It has
Dave?
to be.
All right, here's the first question.
This is not a democracy.
I will say I give up already because I know Mark's going to win this. So
This is Sarah's world, damn it. And you guys have to play by my rules.
I believe
right?
the topic is presidents, U.S. presidents. And
No,
I'm from
no.
the UK. Andrew's from Canada.
It's not U.S. president.
The answer is Guy Fawkes.
All right.
3.145.
All right, I'm going. And you guys are just so not obeying my rules. Question number 1. Who said the tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time?
Thomas Jefferson.
Thomas Jefferson, yes.
Okay, Mark gets that one. Ding, 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 ding. Keep
But
track of your answers.
I agreed with Mark. I agree.
Yeah, but Mark got it first.
Okay.
It's,
Points are not
there's
trickle down
it's a
economic.
speed factor. There is a speed factor. Okay, here we go. They who can give up essential liberty to
Abraham
attain
Lincoln. The electricity man, Benjamin Franklin.
I
Okay,
agree with
Andrew got that
I
one.
agree with Andrew. Yeah.
Okay, one and one. Dave, you're in the dark.
I know.
The electricity man.
Yeah.
What is that?
The electricity man. Oh God. Okay. Humanity has won its battle. Liberty now has a country.
George Washington.
George Washington.
No and no. Come on, Dave.
Benjamin Franklin.
Abraham Lincoln. No. John Adams.
Marquis de Lafayette.
Oh, could we leave?
I thought these were
out of it?
presidents.
I told you it was not presidents.
I thought you were cheating me just so I didn't try and answer all the questions quickly.
Yeah, that
It
was
is
US
not
presidents.
presidents.
Too. I also
It's
thought it was US
just
presidents.
Liberty quiz. It's Liberty
Well, of
quiz.
course, Benjamin Franklin wasn't president either.
Lord have mercy. Okay. Who said, give me liberty or give me death?
George Washington. George Washington.
Oh,
Come on. That's the easiest one on here.
Henry. Patrick Henry.
John Adams.
Patrick Henry. Dave's on the board. Woo.
Oh boy.
All right. How many of you all
Dave
of you
and
have?
his Google.
One and one.
I have Chat GPT ready on my
Hands,
phone.
hands, not on keys. Hands, not on
Jazz
keys.
hands for congratulations.
buzzers.
Jazz hands.
Hands on buzzers. Okay, here's the last question. Dictatorship naturally arises out of democracy, and the most aggravated form of tyranny and slavery out of the most extreme liberty. I didn't
know.
write them.
Lincoln.
Well, I'll say Abraham Lincoln.
Winston
Just a
Churchill.
No, and no. They're liberty quotes. They're not necessarily United States liberty quotes.
Fyodor Dostoevsky.
Napoleon Bonaparte.
No. God, Dave, are you awake?
Yes, I am. I'm trying
John
to think.
Locke. John Locke.
Well, you're getting close.
Hobbes.
Not. All right, it's Plato. It's Plato.
Oh.
Heck, everybody at home got that one. You guys, I tell you. Okay, who won that one? Did Andrew win that?
No,
It
I
was-
think it was probably 1-1-1. I think all of us had one apiece.
Okay, because, man, you all did not do well on this one. All right, boys. Well, we've had a few weirdos along that constitutional republic road. And in 100 years, most people will likely say the same about this generation of presidents and politicians. Thanks for playing, and we'll be back the next time with another round of trivia. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform. YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, we're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV production. Thank you for tuning in, and remember to surf on over to libertynation.com. And special thanks to our fantastic editor and post coordinator, Frank Diorio. I'm Sarah Cowgill, filling in for Lisa K. Donner. Thanks for joining us today. This has been a production of libertynation.com, where truth matters.